Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that I know a lot of you are interested in,
Yeah,
psychotherapy and older
that's
adults.
a big one.
It is a really big one, and we have quite a stack of academic articles here that you sent our way. So
Sure.
clearly, this is something that you're really interested in learning more about. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a fascinating field. It's one that, to be honest, has been really overshadowed for far too long.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to uncover why that is
Uh,
and what's changing and how we can move forward in a better way.
yeah. You're absolutely right. Psychotherapy for older adults has been historically neglected, often dismissed because of, I guess we could just call it what it is, ageism.
Yeah.
And this bias has really had a true impact on both the theory and the practice of therapy for older adults.
It's incredible to me that Freud,
Right.
the so-called father of psychoanalysis,
Yeah.
believed that people over 50 were ineducable.
Oh, wow.
Talk about missing out on a whole world of human experience.
That's really something. That statement from Freud really highlights a key point from one of your sources, this paradox of ageism. It's based on something we'll all experience,
Right.
yet it's been slower to gain recognition compared to other forms of discrimination.
It's almost like it's so ingrained in our culture we don't even see it.
Exactly.
But it's there lurking beneath the surface, impacting how we approach mental health care for older adults.
Exactly. For decades, there was this underlying assumption that therapy was for younger people and that older adults were somehow set in their ways.
Right.
But thankfully, we're starting to challenge that narrative.
Okay, good. Because that whole set in their ways idea just doesn't sit right with me.
Right.
It feels like we're closing the door on growth and change at a certain age, which just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't at all. And actually, one of your sources uses this great phrase, therapy for older adults isn't too late, it's just in time. It can help people address the unique challenges and opportunities that come with this stage of life.
I love that. Just in time. Because it really does emphasize that this is a time of life with its own, rich tapestry of experiences and possibilities.
Right.
And that makes me think about, Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development.
Yes.
Right.
Specifically, the stages most relevant to older adults are generativity versus stagnation, and then ego integrity versus despair.
Right.
And in the first one, individuals are really focused on contributing to the world and leaving a legacy. And in the second one, the focus shifts to finding meaning and acceptance in one's life.
And those stages really highlight how much inner work and growth can still happen later in life,
Absolutely.
and how therapy can play a vital role in that process.
Absolutely. It's about supporting people as they navigate these later stages of development and find a sense of fulfillment.
So let's dive into the specific types of therapy
Okay.
that can be helpful.
Sure.
Your sources mention quite a few: CBT, psychodynamic therapy,
Yeah.
interpersonal therapy, systemic therapy, and reminiscence life review therapy. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Where should we start?
Well, CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is a good place to begin, I think. It's become incredibly popular, and for good reason. It's a practical, goal-oriented approach that's been shown to be effective for a wide range of issues, including anxiety, depression, and even some of the behavioral challenges associated with dementia.
And CBT is the one where you learn to identify and challenge
Yeah.
negative thought patterns, right?
Exactly. It's all about understanding how our thoughts influence our feelings and behaviors. One of your sources mentions a study where CBT was used with older adults experiencing anxiety related to falls.
Okay.
And by working to change their negative thoughts about falling, participants were actually able to reduce their fear and increase their activity levels,
Wow.
which is huge for maintaining independence and quality of life.
That's a really concrete example
Yeah.
of how CBT can make a real difference in people's lives. But I'm curious,
Yeah.
how do therapists adapt CBT for older adults?
Well, there are several key adaptations that therapists can use. They might use a slower pace, incorporating repetition and visual aids to enhance understanding. They also tend to emphasize a collaborative approach, working with the individual to set realistic goals and develop strategies that fit their specific needs and lifestyle.
It makes sense that tailoring the approach would be so important.
Yeah.
Now, what about cognitive analytic therapy,
Right.
or SEEK?
Yeah.
How does that differ from CBT?
CT is fascinating because it integrates both cognitive and analytic traditions. It delves deeper into an individual's life story, their relationships, and how their past experiences shape their present.
Oh,
It's all about fostering dialogue and helping people understand the recurring patterns in their
so
lives.
it's a bit more focused on uncovering the root causes of their current challenges.
Yeah. And one of its strengths is that it can be very helpful for older adults who are reflecting on their lives and trying to make sense of their experiences. Imagine someone who's always struggled with feelings of inadequacy stemming from a critical parent. Seek could help them understand how those early experiences continue to influence their self-perception and then work towards developing a more positive self-image.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
It's almost like rewriting the internal script that's been running in the background for years.
exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about psychodynamic therapy, which I know is often associated with Freud and the exploration of the unconscious.
Right. Psychodynamic therapy delves into unconscious motivations and how past experiences, often from childhood, can impact our present thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It can be very effective in helping people understand the deeper roots of their challenges. However, one of your sources points out that it's crucial to be mindful of the potential complexities of transference and countertransference when using this approach with older adults.
Okay, transference and countertransference. Those are terms I've heard before, but I'm not sure I fully grasped them. Can you break those down for us?
Of course, transference is when a client unconsciously transfers feelings or expectations from past relationships onto the therapist. For example, they might start to see the therapist as a parental figure. Okay. Countertransference is the flip side, where the therapist's own unconscious feelings and experiences are projected onto the client.
So if a therapist has unresolved issues with their own parents, for example,
Right.
that could potentially influence how they interact with an older client who reminds them of their mother or father.
That's the risk. And it really highlights the need for therapists to be incredibly self-aware and sensitive when working with older adults using a psychodynamic approach. They need to be able to recognize and manage their own emotional responses to ensure they're providing ethical and effective care.
That makes a lot of sense.
So,
The reminder that therapy is a human relationship and all those human complexities come into play. Okay, let's move on to interpersonal therapy, or IPT. What's the focus there?
IPT is a more practical and focused approach that zeroes in on how relationship issues contribute to mental health challenges.
What?
It targets four key areas:
Okay.
role transitions, role disputes, abnormal grief, and interpersonal deficits.
Okay, so if an older adult is struggling to adjust to retirement or coping with the loss of a spouse,
Right.
IPT could be a good fit.
Absolutely. Those are prime examples of role transitions and grief that can significantly impact mental well-being. And the research shows that IPT is very effective for treating depression in older adults, even helping to prevent relapse, which is crucial.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, what about systemic therapy, also known as family therapy? I imagine that could be particularly relevant for older adults who are often embedded in these really complex family systems.
You're right. Systemic therapy recognizes that individuals exist within a web of relationships, and that those relationships can both contribute to and be impacted by mental health challenges. It's about looking at the whole system, not just the individual.
So instead of just focusing on one person's issues, the therapist would look at how everyone in the family is interacting
Exactly.
and contributing to the overall dynamic.
Exactly. And this can be really helpful in situations where family dynamics are strained, such as when an older adult is diagnosed with a chronic illness like dementia. It allows everyone involved to have a voice and work together to find solutions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Bringing the family into the process can provide a more holistic approach to care and support.
Right. It acknowledges that mental health doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's influenced by our environment, our relationships, and the systems we're a part of.
Okay, and last but not least, we have reminiscence and life review therapy.
Yes.
These seem a bit different from the other therapies we've discussed.
They are. Reminiscence therapy is about recalling and sharing memories from the past, often in a group setting. It can be incredibly powerful in helping older adults connect with each other, boost their self-esteem, and find meaning in their life stories.
It sounds almost like storytelling,
Right.
like sitting around a campfire and sharing those treasured memories.
It can be quite similar. And that process of sharing can be incredibly therapeutic, especially for older adults who might feel isolated or disconnected. Life review therapy, on the other hand, is a more structured and in-depth process. It involves revisiting key events and relationships from the past, working through unresolved conflicts, and ultimately finding greater peace and acceptance.
Wow, that sounds like a really profound experience,
It can be.
like an opportunity to rewrite the narrative of their lives and find a sense of closure.
Exactly. And both of these therapies tie in beautifully with Erickson's stage of ego integrity versus despair. They can help older adults come to terms with their lives and face the future with a sense of peace and meaning.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, exploring several different types of therapy that can be beneficial for older adults. But I'm curious to hear more about how these therapies might be specifically adapted for people with dementia,
Yeah.
given that there's often this misconception that therapy isn't possible when someone has that diagnosis.
That's a great point, and it's a misconception we need to challenge. While traditional talk therapy might need to be adjusted, there are absolutely approaches that can be helpful for individuals with dementia and their families.
That's reassuring to hear. So what kinds of therapies are we talking about here?
Well, CBT, for example, can be adapted to help manage some of the behavioral challenges that can arise with dementia, like agitation or aggression. Environmental interventions, such as creating a calm and structured environment, can also be very beneficial. And supportive therapies, which focus on providing emotional support and validation, can make a world of difference for both the person with dementia and their caregivers.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's about meeting people where they are and providing support that's tailored to their needs, even as those needs change over time.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even as cognitive abilities change, the need for connection, emotional support, and a sense of well-being remains. And that's where therapy can play a valuable role.
It's fascinating to me that CBT can be adapted for dementia care.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about how that works in practice.
Sure. Let's say an individual with dementia is experiencing increased agitation in the late afternoon, a phenomenon often called sundowning. A therapist trained in CBT techniques for dementia care might work with caregivers to identify potential triggers for this agitation, like changes in light or routine. Then they could develop strategies to minimize those triggers, perhaps incorporating calming activities, like listening to familiar music or engaging in light exercise earlier in the day.
So it's less about changing the individual's thought patterns directly,
Mm-hmm.
like you might do with CBT for someone without dementia,
Right.
and more about modifying the environment and routines
Exactly.
to support their well-being.
Precisely. It's about recognizing the interplay between the individual's internal state and their external environment.
That's a great example of how therapy can be tailored
Yeah.
to meet very specific needs. Speaking of tailoring, it seems like choosing the right type of therapy for an older adult would involve considering a lot of factors,
Absolutely.
like their personality,
Yes.
their history, and the specific challenges they're facing.
One of your sources highlights this idea of matching the therapy to the individual. For instance, if someone is dealing with uncomplicated depression, CBT or IPT, which we discussed earlier, might be very effective.
But what if the situation is more complex?
Hmm.
What if someone's depression is intertwined with these deeper personality issues?
That's a great question. In those cases, a therapist might recommend CAT or even psychodynamic therapy, as those approaches can help unpack those more entrenched patterns and address underlying emotional conflicts.
It seems like having such a diverse toolkit of therapeutic approaches is crucial,
Yes,
especially when working with older adults who often have such rich and varied life experiences.
it absolutely is. And it's also important to remember that the individual's preferences matter too.
Right.
Therapy is most effective when there's a good fit between the therapist and the client, and when the client feels comfortable with the chosen approach.
That makes sense. It's a partnership after all. Now, I know we've touched on this a bit already, but I'd love to delve deeper into the idea of adapting therapy for older adults. What are some of the key considerations that therapists need to keep in mind?
One of your sources provides a really helpful overview of this. It emphasizes the importance of a slower pace, recognizing that older adults might need more time to process information and formulate their thoughts.
Okay.
Therapists might also use repetition and visual aids to enhance understanding.
I can see how those adaptations would be particularly helpful
Yeah.
for individuals with hearing impairments or vision problems.
Exactly. Therapists need to be mindful of those sensory changes and make accommodations as needed. They might speak more slowly and clearly, use larger print materials, or even incorporate assistive devices.
It's all about making therapy accessible and comfortable. What other adjustments might be necessary?
Well, a collaborative style is often more effective than a more directive approach. It's about working together to set goals and develop strategies that feel right for the individual.
So it's less about the therapist telling the client what to do and more about empowering them to find their own solutions.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the wisdom and experience that older adults bring to the table. They're not blank slates. They have a lifetime of coping skills and insights. Therapy is about helping them tap into those strengths and find new ways to navigate challenges.
I love that perspective. It's about honoring their resilience and supporting their continued growth.
Yeah.
What about sensitivity to maturational and cohort differences?
Yes,
I imagine those could also play a significant role in shaping the therapeutic approach.
they absolutely do. Therapists need to be mindful of the unique historical and cultural contexts that have shaped older adults' lives.
Oh.
Someone who lived through the Great Depression, for example, might have a very different perspective on hardship and resilience than someone who came of age during the tech boom.
Right. It's about understanding the world through their eyes
Yeah.
and meeting them where they are.
Exactly. And it's also important to be aware of potential generational differences in attitudes towards mental health. Some older adults might have grown up in a time when therapy was stigmatized, so approaching the topic with sensitivity and respect is crucial.
I imagine that building trust and rapport is especially important
Yeah,
in those cases.
it is, and that often takes time and patience. It's
Mhm.
also important to be flexible in terms of scheduling and location.
Oh, right. Transportation can be a major barrier
It
for
can.
some older adults.
So therapists might need to be willing to offer sessions via telehealth, make home visits, or adjust their office hours to accommodate individual needs.
It sounds like a lot of it comes down to recognizing that older adults are not a monolithic group. They have diverse needs and preferences, and therapy needs to be tailored accordingly.
That's a key takeaway. And we can't forget about the importance of involving caregivers in the treatment process when appropriate.
That's a great point. Caregivers often play such a vital role in supporting older adults' well-being.
They do. They can provide invaluable insights into the individual's behavior, help with medication management, and offer emotional support. Including them in therapy sessions with the individual's consent, of course, can be incredibly beneficial.
Wow.
It allows for a more collaborative approach to care and ensures that everyone is on the same page.
So it seems like therapy for older adults requires a really holistic approach, considering not just the individual, but also their environment, their relationships, and their unique needs.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about recognizing the richness and complexity of later life and tailoring therapy accordingly.
And it's about challenging those ageist assumptions that have held the field back for so long.
Couldn't agree more. Psychotherapy for older adults is not about fixing them or seeing them as somehow less capable of growth and change. It's about honoring their experiences, supporting their resilience, and helping them thrive in this chapter of their lives.
Okay, we've explored so much in this deep dive: the impact of ageism, the diverse range of therapeutic approaches, the need for adaptations, and the importance of a holistic perspective. It's been a truly eye-opening exploration, and I have to say I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about the potential for positive change in this field.
Me too. There's a growing recognition that psychotherapy for older adults is not only possible, but it's essential. It's about addressing mental health challenges, yes, but it's also about supporting well-being and fostering personal growth throughout the lifespan.
And I think the just-in-time framing really resonates with me.
Yeah,
It emphasizes that later life isn't, some stagnant period of decline,
right.
but rather a time of continued evolution and self-discovery.
Exactly. It's about embracing the richness and complexity of aging and recognizing the unique challenges and opportunities that come with it.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listener with a thought-provoking question to ponder,
Okay.
something that builds on what we've discussed and encourages them to continue exploring this topic.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to mind?
That's a great challenge.
Okay.
Okay, how about this? As awareness of ageism grows and research on psychotherapy for older adults expands, what will the future of mental health care look like? How can we create a system that truly meets the needs of an aging population?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah,
And a really important one. It makes me think about all the potential for innovation and positive change. Imagine a world where mental health care is seamlessly integrated into senior centers, assisted living facilities, and even primary care settings.
I love that vision. A world where mental health is no longer treated as separate from physical health, and where older adults have easy access to the support they need regardless of their living situation or financial resources.
And where ageism is a thing of the past, replaced by a deep understanding and appreciation for the value and wisdom that older adults bring to our communities.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing the incredible potential for growth and healing throughout the lifespan and creating a society that supports that journey every step of the way.
This has been an absolutely incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and our listeners.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
And to our listener, keep those questions coming and keep exploring. It's never too late to learn, grow, and connect with the power of therapy.
Beautifully said. We'll see you on the next deep dive. It's been a truly eye-opening exploration, And I have to say, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about the potential for positive change in this field.
Yeah, I am too. There's a growing recognition that psychotherapy for older adults is not only possible, but it's essential.
Hmm.
It's about addressing mental health challenges, yes, but it's also about supporting well-being and fostering personal growth throughout the lifespan.
And I think the just-in-time framing really resonates with me. It emphasizes that later life isn't, some stagnant period of decline, but rather a time of continued evolution and self-discovery.
Exactly. It's about embracing the richness and complexity of aging and recognizing the unique challenges and opportunities that come with it.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listener the thought-provoking question to ponder, something that builds on what we've discussed and encourages them to continue exploring this topic. What comes to mind?
Hmm, that's a great challenge. Okay, how about this? As awareness of ageism grows and research on psychotherapy for older adults expands, what will the future of mental health care look like? How can we create a system that truly meets the needs of an aging population?
Ooh, that's a big one and a really important one. It makes me think about all the potential for innovation and positive change. Imagine a world where mental health care is seamlessly integrated into senior centers, assisted living facilities, and even primary care settings.
I love that vision. A world where mental health is no longer treated as separate from physical health, and where older adults have easy access to the support they need, regardless of their living situation or financial resources.
And where ageism is a thing of the past, replaced by a deep understanding and appreciation for the value and wisdom that older adults bring to our communities.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing the incredible potential for growth and healing throughout the lifespan and creating a society that supports that journey every step of the way.
This has been an absolutely incredible deep dive.
It really has.
Thank you so much for lending your expertise to this conversation.
My pleasure.
And to our listener out there, keep those questions coming and keep exploring. It's never too late to learn, grow, and connect with the power of therapy.
Well said.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.